all of that skin off to fight the infection, and basically said that, there wasn't a lot of hope for him. And the doctors had a meeting with us. We all sat down together. It was a 5-panel doctor team, and we went and sat down with them, and they just said, if you're praying people, now's the time, because we've done all we can for him, and it's in his hands. And
So they said there was no more they could do?
No.
This was it?
That was it.
All the doctor's consultation, all the advice, everything?
Yeah.
We had all of our family
Your
coming.
son was going to die?
Mm-hmm.
And they talked to us about organ donation at that time, saying that, he could help a lot of people if we would do that. And so all of our family was there praying in the waiting room, and we wanted to take our time as far as parents with the decision on what to do next. And so we went to a parent room that they have at the hospital. And my sister, Joanne, had given me a gift that week. She'd lost her husband to an accident. And she said, sometimes you just have to let go and give him back.
To let go?
Yeah. So we held hands. We basically said, thy will be done, Lord. We raised him up and said, we love our son. We want him here desperately, but it is your will. And that letting go is very difficult.
So basically, you said to Jake, it's okay to let go.
Yeah.
It was okay to let go.
Yeah.
But
And then,
worse
I know this
was
is
telling
heavy.
each other,
Yeah.
was telling each other it was okay to let go.
But now
letting go and giving Jacob back to God.
Yeah.
We knew that he's not ours to keep. He's God's son.
Absolutely. We know that each life is precious and each life is a gift from God. And so I really, that's so powerful that you speak about that, about realizing that, Jacob is going to die, but it's God's will. Mm-hmm. And you see the blessings. A beautiful child, 5 years old, beautiful child. And you would have to look back at the blessings he's had and given you in your lifetime. Mm-hmm. And now you're ready to give him back to God. Because at that point, it may be God's will to take Jake.
Yes.
Right.
So after then, you accepted God's will. You basically said to Jacob, it's okay to let go. A lot of times in emergency, in intensive care units, when your mother or father's dying in their 80s and 90s, you say, in Italian, to my mother, it's okay, Teresa, let go now. We're all here. We all love you. It's time to let go. And that's basically what you were saying to Jacob.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
at the same time, we went and we prayed and we let Jake go and we gave him back to God. And we knew that it was out of our hands. It's out of the doctor's hands. And the doctors are only human just like us. They cannot play the role of God. That on the day that God has chosen to take Jake home, there was nothing on the face of the earth that could change that. But it was after that we prayed that I went back down to Jake's room, and I just sat with him. I just had to hold him one last time, and so when I sat with him, he had so many tubes coming in and out of him. The only thing that was left was his legs that were needle free and had no tubes coming in and out of them, but the best way I can describe it is if somebody was drowning in a water and you're in a boat and you're reaching down and you're trying to pull them back, and you're hanging on to them for dear life. That's what it was like for me, hanging on to Jake. I just prayed that God wouldn't take him away from me. I couldn't live my life without him. And I felt like I was trying, like Jake was on the verge. I felt it in my heart that Jake was on the verge between passing to the other side and staying here on earth. And I knew in my heart that's where he was at. But I had no way to prove that. I'm just talking from the heart of a mother. I grew this child in my room for 9 months, and I was hanging on dearly for my son to stay here on this earth, and then I felt the peace, and I left the room, and it wasn't until the following week that I think it was actually was probably the following week that Donnie's aunt came to see us. She was Sister Josie.
Yeah, so my aunt, Josie's a nun. She got a hold of Cattery Mitchell. Cattery Mitchell was the one that brought the relic, and she asked to pray for Jake as well.
So she brought the bone, first relic
Right,
that Francis was talking about,
Right.
to the bed.
yeah,
And this was Sister Cattery.
Yes,
Yes.
Sister
So
Catherine Mitchell.
Sister Cattery. So, I mean, there's no coincidences.
yeah,
Here you have your aunt,
right,
who knows another nun.
Wow.
Whose name is Cattery.
right.
Wow.
So, and when we think about it, one thing we know about Cattery Tekakwitha is that she wanted to become a nun, and that's what she lived for. And was afterwards she was accepted. But so this is how the Lord works. So now we have Sister Cattery, who comes to the hospital.
Right.
With a relic.
With the relics, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think my husband was there with me at the time. He was back at the Ronald McDonald House trying to sleep, and so I was there with her, and so when Sister Josie and introduced her to me that her name was Sister Cattery Mitchell, I just remember I had this feeling that went through me, and I just looked at her and I said, "You are a message from God." And she said, "Oh no, I'm just here to pray for your son. Your Aunt Josie told me that Jake was gravely ill, and she wanted me to come and pray for him." And I said, "No, you don't understand." I said, "We've been praying for days and weeks that Jake would survive this." I said, and every day the news that we kept getting from the doctors was worse. Every day it just continued to be worse. And I said, "So you're a messenger from God." I said, "You've been sent to tell me that he's heard my prayers. He's heard all of our prayers, and he's answering us." And I knew that she was a sign. And so she took the relic that she had from Jake, and she took it back with us. And it was Josie and Sister Cattery and myself that we went back, and she placed it on Jake, and we prayed for him. And then that was the following day when they took Jake back into the operating room. That was the final day that I think my husband said I was probably at wit's end, and I couldn't bear the agony of everything that was going on, of looking in their eyes anymore.
One thing that the surgery that they were doing, so this disease, you can't, antibiotics don't do a whole lot. They tried flushing it out. They couldn't do that. And so when the disease specialist, Dr. Hopper and Dr. Rubens, were working together on him, Dr. Hopper's a plastic surgeon, world-renowned. He's a miracle in himself, but he was basically going after the infection by cutting it out. So they basically took Jake's facial flesh off, and they were underneath, and then every time they went in, they found more and more of this diseased
It just
infection.
continued to grow.
Yeah, and so he would have to manually cut it out. And so they took a lot of tissue around his eyes. Most of his face was gone. Now it had progressed up and over his scalp. So they were actually cutting across from his ears and flapping open from front to back, and taking the diseased flesh out. And then they were feared it had actually gone in behind his eyes, and he would probably lose his sight. And so they were taking he took some muscle around his eyes out. But that's kind of where we were. He was going into surgeries every day for, twice a day, and then the hyperbaric chamber. So that morning that she's talking about, when we met with the doctors, we walked in and we knew, this was it. And so she was kind of hiding behind me. And so Dr. Hopper basically said, well, he says, we have some news. And we were just like, oh, man, you know, what is it? And he said, it's stopped.
It stopped.
It stopped.
The flesh-eating disease stopped.
Yeah, stopped in its tracks. He said it's like a volcano that just continues to erupt. I mean, this whole ordeal, he said, I don't know why, I don't know how, but it just has stopped.
Wow.
And so we were kind of in shock. We were expecting him to say that Jake didn't make it through the surgery because it was just right after he came out of surgery. So we were shocked. We didn't really know what to do. We were just like, you know, somebody telling you that something that you're prayed for and, you know, anguished for and all these things that, you know, were going on has worked.
I'm picturing this time frame.
Wow.
So now we have days of you all being at the hospital, Jacob being in bed, and the disease each and every day just getting worse and worse and worse.
Okay.
And the doctor's removing it, as you mentioned, his skin. And then you have all these people praying for you,
Right.
you yourselves praying. And then Sister Cattery comes in with this relic. And the doctors are still doing these surgeries on Jake.
Right.
And now all of a sudden, they tell you it stops.
It didn't just stop. I mean, it wasn't. It was the day after she came and laid the relic on Jake. It was
The day
next
after the
day.
relic.
It was the day after that the
So you knew it was
doctors-
Cattery then?
No, at that point, no. There are so many different layers of the story that didn't come to full circle until years after in finding out. Because once the investigation process had begun, the panel of people, okay, here's a calendar, show me what day this happened, what day that happened. And once that,
And this is the Vatican now
this is the
investigating
Vatican, the
all this.
investigation, you know, in the whole, for Blessed Cattery to become a saint, that's when they pulled out the calendar, and this was probably 5 years afterwards that I looked at the calendar, and then it came to me that his disease stopped the day after she came and laid the relic on Jake.
Oh, my
The
God.
day after Sister Cattery comes and lays a relic of Blessed Cattery, Tecawitha, on Jacob, this disease stops.
Yeah,
This is
Whoa.
incredible.
yeah. So at the time, no, we didn't look at each other and say it was Saint or Blessed Cattery that had interceded. I mean, we were so relieved. It was the biggest weight off of our shoulders to know that he was going to live. And every surgery that took place thereafter, it was in recovery and putting Jake back together. He already had so many scars and everything. I mean, like my husband said, all of the skin around Jake's eyeballs, and he had a zigzag scar that went from one ear across his scalp to the other ear. It went down his neck. They made an incision from one shoulder to the next in order to make sure that it didn't progress into his heart.
How many surgeries did he have?
At that point, probably about 22.
22 surgeries at
22.
that point. How many at this point, now that's all done? How many-
31.
31.
Yeah.
The Vatican investigation, had to be quite an ordeal, right? Especially the Vatican.
Right.
It was a lot of years, yeah. It was a lot of
Wow.
years
A lot of-
that took place.
Yeah, a lot of
When we
interviews.
come back, we
Yeah.
want to talk about that.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to have Francis talk about that investigation. So we're leaving off at the point where the doctors come out and they said the flesh-eating disease has stopped.
Yeah.
And then at that point, 5 years passed, and then we're starting to put it all together about St. Cattery,
Yes.
that she was the leading force, the one that interceded, like Father Francis just mentioned, that made this stop.
Yes.
Wow.
Well,
853-4444, 853-4444. That's the phone number to call with your gift of love. This is an incredible story that we have just heard. And tie this in at the birthplace of where St. Cattery was, right over there. Now, you've seen it. Here's the little marker there. Here she is, right? St. Catherine, this is where she was born. All this time passes, and it comes into your lives. And you ever say to yourself, why us? Why me? Why me, Daddy? Why me, Mommy?
Only for the last 10 years.
Well,
Unbelievable. What a message. We got a couple things to do. Father Francis, you want to add something to this before we come back?
This is just a really remarkable story. And I'd just like to remind everybody once again that we are here at Our Lady of Martyrs Shrine.
Does this make a difference to you? I mean, look, you're not a 70, 80-year-old priest that can hardly walk and
No,
talk.
thank God.
You're a young seminarian. You're a good-looking guy with blue eyes. Here you are, as Bishop Ed mentioned the other day to me on the telephone, and he'll share this story tomorrow. Here you are, a future priest, listening to this couple. I mean, you know how many seminarians would love to be sitting where you are right now? I mean, that's a message. I mean, this has got to make you a better priest.
Yeah, well, it's very heart-touching. For me, right now, it's hearing the impact that prayer and hope that these two had gone through with their son, and also not giving up. The grace of God, and that's the first thing we recognize, is that it was God who healed Jacob. Cattery comes after that, but it was God's will. As it was God's will, they mentioned that they were ready to give Jacob up to our Lord. It was God's will to heal Jacob. And here we are, Oresville, New York, Our Lady of Martyrs Shrine, the birthplace of now Saint Cattery Tekakwitha. 130 years, the Jesuits have been doing ministry on this campus of St. Isaac Job, where he was martyred. And here we are at the birthplace of St. Cattery. And we have this beautiful young man, Jacob, who is here and received the healing through the intercessions, through the prayers of Blessed Cattery, through the prayers to our Heavenly Father. Was healed through this nightmare of a disease.
And to be a part of this celebration of 130 years. See, to me, the Jesuits leaving is trivia. I could care. It doesn't make a difference. The shrine is bigger than the Jesuits. Cattery is bigger than the Jesuits. The future is bigger than the past. When we start living in the past, we live in the past. We don't grow. And this shrine, and with this celebration of all this millions of dollars that's been raised, is the foundation of young Catholics like you and this boy over here. That's the future of this shrine, offering people. And what you're doing today to hundreds of thousands of people on radio and tomorrow on TV at Randall's stations, there is a message for them to find hope in Cattery, hope in our faith. I mean, how many Catholics have gone by the wayside because some priest hurt them emotionally? Some priest hurt them sexually. Some priest hurt them because of some old rules. Some priest hurt them because they're sick in the head themselves, and the Catholic Church has suffered from their leadership. But you bring so much hope for the future of the Catholic Church and to St. Cattery and to young seminarians like Father Francis. Let's face it, we have him for 40 years as a priest.
Lucky
He
you.
will never forget meeting you or meeting Jake. He's got a message to share to thousands of people that's going to be in his church and churches throughout his lifetime. Hey, you want to hear about a miracle? Let me tell you about a miracle. This is a modern day miracle. This is not something that Jesus walked in the tomb, touched a guy, and he walked out of the grave. You know, it's a fairy tale story, but one we have to believe. You are a modern day miracle. That makes the big difference. So
Here
there's a
we are.
message here.
Yeah, absolutely. Here we are celebrating 130 years here in Oresville, New York, Our Lady of Martyrs Shrine. And we have Jake Finkbonner, who received the cure, the healing through the flesh-eating disease, and was the cause of the canonization for St. Cattery Tekakwitha, born here in Oresville, New York. Joey, I know we are just getting started. This is a 3-day event. This is a huge celebration, 130 years. We have people coming from all over. We've been receiving a lot of phone calls. So
853-4444. We can always use money. Look, this is not about money. We already got the money, but it would be nice to have a little bit more.
Okay.
But I'll be greedy, though, just a little bit more. 853-4444. And you're going to be with us throughout the entire weekend. I can look out here, the television station, Channel 10 is here, and Channel 13 is here. So we're going to give you a couple minutes to sort of recompose.
Okay.
You're only going to have to do this on TV in a couple minutes. But there's one thing that's missing. You met Pope Benedict.
Yes.
Nice guy.
Yeah, he was tired though. He was tired.
Did he hold you?
No, he didn't.
Did you?
No, but I have a funny story to share about that.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, it was our youngest daughter, Malia, at that time. She was in second grade, the grade for receiving First Communion, and she was in preparatory classes for that. And we gave her, before we went on the trip, we gave her a quick crash course of it. We took her into Father Scott to have her first confession and everything, and so she did all of that, and then we went on our trip to Rome, and she was just, she's just a little peanut, she's just 7, and so when we went up to the kneeler to receive communion, she was so small, that was her first Holy Communion, was with Pope Benedict, and she was so small, the Pope had to lean way over, and usually they put the tray underneath there, they couldn't get it under there because he was trying to reach down so far to get the host into her mouth, and so that was her first Holy Communion.
There you go.
Yeah.
So actually, we're going to hear from Malia earlier, or later on this afternoon. She receives her first Holy Communion from Pope Benedict.
Wow.
How amazing is that?
Yeah.
We're going to hear her story.
Yeah.
That's like hitting the lottery. Right?
That's right.
That's like hitting the lottery, man.
Here we are in
What a
Orangeville, New
story.
York.
Listen, you know how many times I cried? Oh, no, really. Just as a father, you're saying to yourself, my God, how do you put it together? How do you, I used to do a lot of telethons still do, but the stuff for St. Jude's Hospital. There's some brain tumors that you just can't fix.
Yeah.
And when you walk into the hospital, these parents come to our people, our radio announcers, the people who've been working, raising funds. Here you're asking people to give you money so that cancer can be cured. And you walk in the chemotherapy room, and these kids are all tied up to machines, and the mother is sitting in a rocker, the father sits there all night, you sit there all day as a mother, and you keep going back and forth, and you say to yourself, why did this one get healed? Why did this brain tumor in this boy be okay, yet this girl didn't make it?
Yeah.
And I can remember one time to a priest, especially a family you get emotionally tied into when you go to the hospital. I said, Father, this has got to be a bunch of crap. This don't make sense. How can this one be saved and this child don't get saved? And this priest looked at me, an old priest, an elderly priest. And he looked at me and he said, Joey, your goal is to raise money for children dying with cancer. But let God be the one to decide when he's got to take he or she.
Yes.
In this particular case, as Francis mentioned, your son met Jesus in a dream?
I think it's something beyond a dream.
More than a dream.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And you asked about if we had asked each other, how come this had to happen to our son? Why did this have to happen to us? Why us?
Yeah, the why.
The whys, all those questions. And I remember when Father Tim, early on, he came by, and it's the same kind of story with you, that you see one child healed and the next one doesn't be healed. Where is the reasoning behind that? I had my brother, he's got 4 boys, and I only have one, and here he was on the verge of death. And I just remembered thinking to myself, why did it have to happen to my son? And I remember asking Father Tim when he came down to talk to us, and I just looked at him and I just said, I don't understand. Why did it have to be us? Why did it have to be Jake? And he just looked at me square in the eye and said, why not you?
Huh.
And just for him to have made that statement, it was just very blunt. He said, God has a plan for you. You're the chosen one. And I can't say I didn't ask any more, but I had a reason as to why us. God had a reason for it.
So Jake seen Jesus. And what did Jesus say to Jake?
Well, Jake wasn't able to really communicate any of that stuff with any of us, until after we had already been into the hospital. We were there at this point about 2.5 months. And he was on the regular floor now. He was out of the ICU. And Donnie, I had just relieved him of his duty or his time with Jake. And so I went back I was with Jake. And as soon as I walked into the room, I remember him, I can see it clear as a bell that he just sat up in his room and he sat up in his bed and he said, "I've been raised." And I knew exactly what he meant, but I needed him to clarify that. And I said, "Well, what do you mean, Jake?" And he said, "I've been raised." And I said, "Where?" And he says, "I've been raised to heaven." And I said, "By who?" And he says, "By Grandma and Aunt Mary." He has 2 grandmas and 2 Aunt Marys. I didn't ask for clarification. I just went with it. I said, "Okay." I said, "And what did you see?" And he said, "I saw Jesus." And I said, "What did he look like?" And he said he was wearing his white robe with a red sash that went across. And I said, "Did he say anything to you?" And he says, "Yes." He says, he told me that he loved me. And I said, "Did you see anybody else?" And he says, "Yeah." He said, "I saw Uncle Tom." Uncle Tom is Donnie's brother. He's Donnie's, at that time, that was his best friend. That was his father figure, his mentor. And he lived right behind us, and that is Jake's godparent.
Yeah, so my brother Tom, 2 weeks before Jake's accident, we were playing basketball together at a local club. And, he looks like me. He's in good shape. We played a lot of basketball together. And he said, "I'm not feeling good." And we were playing a game, and I said, "Well, why don't you get your stuff and stuff?" So I grabbed the keys. I said, "What's going on?" And he goes, "I don't know. I don't feel right. I feel really bad." And I said, "Okay, well, we'll go to the hospital, get you checked out." So the hospital's a couple minutes away, and I drove him over there, went into ER, emergency reception area, and I said, "Hey, he's having chest pains, not feeling good." He walked in, he sat down, and they're like, "Okay, fill out paperwork, blah, blah, blah." So I said, "Well, I'll fill it out, but you check him." So they brought a nurse out, and she's looking him over, and I see the look on his face, and he's like, "Donnie, there's something wrong." And I said, "Well, we're here at the hospital. They're going to take care of you." And so they hooked him up, and he says, "No, there's something wrong." And then he fell out of the chair, had a heart attack, and died right there.
Wow.
And so we tried to revive him. They got him up. They shocked him half a dozen times, got him into the ER lab, and worked on him for about 90 minutes, but he never woke up. So he was 46 at the time, had 3 kids, married, and so that
Has this crisis made your relationship stronger as a family?
Yes.
yeah.
You go through life and you have your marriages, you have your marriage and you have your quarrels that you go through. And it's easy, I think, for couples to question, did I make a mistake? Is this really who I'm supposed to be with? And, with everything that we went through with Jake, there's no question whether this was a mistake. This is something that we know that we've been chosen to be Jake's parents. We've been chosen to be married to each other. And
what a message.
Mm-hmm.
And we
Unbelievable.
just celebrated 20 years here a couple of days ago on the 16th.
God bless you. Happy anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes. Now listen, we got a couple things to do.
Yeah.
We're going to come back,
Yeah.
okay? And we're going to bring Jake back when
Yes.
we come back.
So here we are. We are in Orsville, New York, Our Lady of Martyrs Shrine. And we have Jake Finkbonner here with us this weekend. We've been speaking with his mother and father, Elsa and Donnie, about this miraculous story of
Unbelievable.
Jake. Yeah, absolutely unbelievable. And we are celebrating 10 years. This is Jacob's 10th year coming up this coming February of his illness. So we have a lot to be celebrating and to rejoice over this weekend.
I got to tell you something. I really want to tell you, okay? Today, listening to you, I hope I'm a better person. I know I'm a better person today after listening to you. And I tell you one thing, when I get home tonight, or when do I get home? Sunday night?
Sunday night.
When I get home Sunday, I'm going to hold my grandchildren, and I'm going to hold my children and my 2 puppies, Boo Boo, and Baba, the Boo Boo. And there's, and just, if these people are listening, they should go home and hug their kids tonight.
That's right.
And thank God for the blessings that they have of health.
That's right.
And you can thank God by calling 853-4444. If you have healthy children, healthy grandchildren, now's the time to say thank you just by listening to your story, by giving a gift to the shrine. 853-4444.
The miracle of Jacob Finkbonner coming up.
Go. And I think channel 10 or 13. Ted, come on over here, channel 10. Come on over here. We promised channel 10. I think maybe they want to take a little shot of you. And no, you got everything you want? You want an interview with them? Absolutely. Okay, we'll give you a little interview. So let me, the statue's here. Oh, let me tell you about the statue now, okay?